Is there a perfect world? Do you think we'll ever get to a point where there is a perfect world?
No.
No?
Not on this earth.
Hmm.
I believe in life after death.
Sure. I do too,
So-
but yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
So, this is not the best that it gets. We'll go back to the beginning, because when you look at the narrative of the Bible, it looks like God is continually trying to take humans back to the way it was at the beginning.
Sure.
Back to the way it was at the beginning. But humans continue to choose. I want to do it my own way. I want to do it my own way. I want to do it. So at the end, if you have to choose between, like, who's gonna win between God and humans? Who has more power?
Right.
Who's gonna say, hey, this is what's gonna happen, it's gonna happen? So yeah, Jesus said it. It will go back to the way it was.
Right.
And if he said it, it will happen.
Hey Anthony, how's it going,
Hey.
brother?
Going good. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm excited too. I'm looking forward to this. I'm glad we're able to do this. So thank you so
Yes.
much for making the time. Before we get
Thank you.
started, if you want to let the people know who you are, what you do, any likes and dislikes in everyday life, anything and everything you want to share about yourself.
Anything and everything. Yes, I'm Joseph Antony. I am from Panama. And I graduated UCO probably like, was it when? I completely forgot. It was last semester. So it was
2023 May.
2023 May. Yeah,
Right.
around that time. Yeah, spring. Graduated professional media. So I make videos. This stuff is really cool. Lights. That's my life. And right now I'm working for my church, Bridgeway Church, and I help them with media, videos, photos, everything that's related to media.
Mhm.
That's what I help them with. So that's what I do right now.
Awesome. And you got married recently, so congratulations to you.
Yes, I think I got married recently, December 19th, to Haley.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm married. It's been a month, and yeah, we have no kids. Well, yeah, I've been married for a month, and I am growing, learning, and just discovering and experiencing the beauty of marriage.
Awesome,
It's-
dude. Yeah, congratulations once
Thank
again.
you, man.
What's
Thank you.
what's the first month been like? I mean, sure, I'm not asking you to go into
Oh,
details, but generally.
Let's get deep. It's been good, something that for the majority of your life, or at least my life, you're living by yourself, and you're living, if I can put it that way, your own life.
Sure.
Nobody else is like dictating what you have to do, say, depending on the culture that you come from. I come from a Latino background, which is a lot more, you do you kind of thing.
Right.
But now, like, getting to have somebody there, it's like, oh, I see how this changes. This changes the dynamic of the decisions that you make, because now you just don't make decisions based on what you like, but also what the other person like, and you want the best for the other person. And I think we live in a culture that it's very it's me-centered, which means
Very individualistic.
yeah, it's very focused on what's the best for me, and no matter who I have to hurt, no matter who I have to step over, what's the best for me and only me. And marriage is that point of life where you have to live the opposite way. It's not just what's the best for me, what's the best for her, if you're married to, if you're a man married to a woman, what's best
Sure.
for her. If you're a woman, it's what's the best for him.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a journey, and beautiful. So.
Something like what matters to both of you together as well sort of plays a role into a lot of it. Together, like making collective decisions and all that kind of stuff.
Every decision that if you look back in your life, every decision that you have made has had an impact.
Right.
It looks like I've never imagined how deep and important decisions were when it comes to just living life.
Yeah.
Every decision that you make changes the trajectory of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
And getting married, and decisions that once you're married, and life is just full of decisions. You wake up every day deciding what am I gonna eat, what am I gonna wear, where am I gonna go, what time I'm gonna leave home, what do I have to do today at work. Like, there are so many decisions that you have to make throughout the day, and I think it has a lot of but I don't think that we have necessarily understood that life is just not about you, and making decisions is like that power that you have to
Right.
say, oh, I can make something happen for me.
Right.
forgetting everybody that is around you. And you have seen probably some politicians and some world leaders making decisions, because we all have to make decisions, man.
Right.
You have seen some of them make decisions just for them, and
Right.
the results sometimes are
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Right. Why do you think we live in that world where everybody is very individualistic and very me-centric?
Yeah, I think. I mean, if you don't mind, I am very
Indulge, go
open, and
for
I
it.
have nothing to hide. I believe in God,
Right.
and I believe in the Bible. I believe in what is written in the Bible, and it's such an amazing book. I would encourage you to read it. And that's a really good question, because I do believe it starts where the Bible starts. I don't know if you're familiar with Genesis. It's a
You can
story.
elaborate. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not quite.
it's a story where God creates the world. So this God comes and um, starts putting the whole world together. And the Bible says that He creates the world in 7 days, and the last day He creates humans. Not 7, but the 6th day He creates humans, and He puts them in a garden. And his intention is to share life with them. Share life with them. Obviously, He's God. He's overall. But He gives them this responsibility: go and subdue the earth, which, in other words, is go and be. What's the word? Go and do what I would do. Go and represent me. Even the Bible says we were created in His image. But there is something interesting that happened. He puts them in the garden, and there is a tree. And there's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And everything is good. And He tells them, don't eat from that tree, because that day that you can eat from anything. The whole world is yours. There are only two humans in the
This is
world.
the Adam and Eve story.
Yeah,
right?
the Adam and Eve story. Yeah.
Okay, I have heard this.
And He tells them, don't eat from that tree.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a serpent that comes and tempts them to, hey, did God really say that? Really? So it's the first time that you start seeing what's starting to get into the world. Doubt. Oh, there is this figure that is opposing God. Oh, okay. And God tells them explicitly, the day that you eat from this tree, you will die. The day that you eat from this tree, you will die.
Right.
And it's interesting when you look at somebody, when somebody dies, and it's taking a long time to answer
Sure.
this
No, it's
question.
okay. Go for it. By all means, man. Go for it.
When you look at somebody die, like the person is still with us. Let's say, for example, you die today.
Yeah.
Your body is still with us.
Right. It's still in this world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there is something in you that is gone.
Right.
So it looks like there is a separation.
Sure.
Something got separated. And that's what we call, yeah, you're dead. Like something got separated. What that thing that gives you life,
sure,
is no longer in you. And it's separation. So when God tells them, when you eat from that tree, you will die.
Right.
God is telling them, yes, you will be separated from me. And here's something that I think most people would need to understand, which is like, if God is not the best for us, what else is? Success, career, really. Your career ends when you turn 80. What, money? Yeah. You can be a millionaire today, you can have millions of dollars today. Tomorrow the whole economy collapses. What are you gonna do? You know? So anyways, God puts humans in this garden. He puts Adam and Eve and tells them not to eat from that tree. And the tempter comes and tells them, yeah, you're wrong. No, God is really lying. He's not really. He means something different, pretty much in those words. And He tells them, the day that you eat from that tree, you will know, and you will be like God. And at that point, what the serpent is telling them to do is stop looking at God and start looking at you, and only you. And the Bible says that the woman saw that the fruit was desirable. It looks very similar to like what we see today. We see somebody who, let's say, someone who is in his 20s, and he has this desire, this ambition to be like powerful and to get in power. I was like, interesting. So anyways, Adam and Eve, they gave in. And since that moment, everything just fell apart. And separation from God and man just, happened, because God told them, hey, God wasn't lying. This is going to happen if you do it. They chose to do it. Separation happened, and if I can give you a short answer to why do you think people are very like self-centered, just why do you think we're in a me kind of culture? It all goes back to, it's not a new thing. It's really not a new
It's
thing.
always been part of history in some
It all
sense.
goes, yeah. If you're somebody who believes in the Bible, it all goes back to the beginning. How we just care about us. This is what I care, and this I want that fruit, and I don't care what somebody else told me to do, to not or not to do. So it starts there, and you can see it played out in society like everywhere.
Right.
We all have this selfish, like, you don't have to go to school to learn to be selfish.
Yeah.
Like you don't have nobody goes to college to learn how to lie.
Right. True.
Like nobody goes to high school to like, hey, this is how you are an evil person. This is how you can lie. This is how you can kill somebody. This is how you can harm. No, it seems like it's just in us. There's something inside of every human being
Yeah.
that is driving the person to just do things that are, hey, this doesn't sound good, like,
Right.
you know, but there's benefit for me in that, only for me. But I don't care if I'm hurting others, as long as there is benefit for me. That's all I care about. That didn't play out well. So, what do you think? What do you think society is about?
I kind of see where you're coming from in the sense that like our greed motivates us, right? Like the things that we want out of this life pushes us to get to certain places, and yeah, we sometimes don't care about what others might have to say or might have to like or how it might affect them. So while like my lens is a little different because I'm a Hindu, I do agree in a lot of ways that we are choosing ourselves over other people in a lot of places. But in some cases, would you say that there's a positive argument for it where you have to choose yourself over not choosing yourself?
I think that's a good question. It take to answer that question. I would go back to Jesus. I believe in Jesus. And one thing that he taught his followers is love God as you love yourself. Sorry, love God as you love yourself now. Love others as you love yourself. So, and I love that he puts it that way because there is love others the same way that you love yourself. Like you do need to love yourself. You do need to look up for yourself, like what's good for you, what's best for you. But when that becomes a problem is that when you want the best for me or for you, no matter the cost, and if the cost is even harming people, that becomes a problem. So I love that he says, hey, love others, love your neighbor, love those around you, those that you do not know, as you love yourself. And the question is, it's simple. Like, how do you love yourself? If you look around, it's very simple. You feed yourself, because if you don't eat, you die. You feed yourself. You rest. Like you take care of yourself.
Right.
Because you want the best for you. And what's the best for you in that particular case? You eat because you want to be strong, you want to be nurtured. The same way that you do it for you, do it for others.
Yeah.
It's very simple. But the problem becomes when there is something in our heart that says, I just want to take care of myself and I really don't care about others. And that's where it becomes. It all results in the world that we have today. Unfortunately,
Right.
I believe that it would follow the teachings of Jesus. The world would be better. Love others as you love yourself. And the other thing, the reason why I think there's a lot of greed and all of that selfishness. Again, it goes back to what I consider at the very beginning, where God creates humans in His image. In other words, it's God saying, hey, I want you to represent me. It's like an ambassador.
Right.
If you're the ambassador of India here in US, you're representing your country, your culture, the way you guys talk, all of those things. So God tells that to him, hey, I'm making you in my image. Go and be my ambassador. Represent me. And one thing that you can see from the beginning about God is that He gives. He's giving. He's putting the whole world together for humans to live. Like, oh, so God wants the best for humans. So if I am the image of God, I should want the best for humans too, for my neighbors. And makes sense then when Jesus comes and He says, hey, love your neighbor as you love yourself. oh, this is the way that we get to be the image of God. Just represent Him by loving others the same way that we love ourselves. So it's this interesting dynamic of loving loving your neighbors as you love yourself, and I feel that it begins, or I think it begins, by first understanding who the Creator is and why He made you. Because once you understand He made you to be in His image, then you have to ask the question, okay, what's His image? Like, what does He look like? What is He like?
Sure.
And when you start seeing, oh, He's a giver. He gives. He's generous. He helps. He helps. Like, oh, you start seeing what. Could you imagine the world being that way? People helping each other. People just loving each other well. I think that's the world everybody wants to live in.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, I do think everybody, like, I mean, that's like an aspirational goal, right? Like, where we live in a world, there's no war, there's no fighting, there's no problems, etc., etc. I have a couple of questions. Firstly, I guess we can dive into the second one separately, but the first question being, there's also people in this world who tend to give more to others than they really give to themselves, in the sense that, like, they don't take care of themselves enough, but they're constantly like trying to support. Like, I'm sure there's many stories out there. Is there an explanation for that in the Bible? I'm just curious to know, because I don't think I've ever gotten to ask this question to someone. So
yeah, so you're saying somebody who, I just want to help, and don't take care of me.
Yeah.
It sounds very nice. You know, it sounds very like, oh my gosh, you're really doing that for others, really. But in reality, when you really dig deep in the heart, this person is very likely doing that for them. Why? Because hearing from others, oh, you're so nice, you're so kind.
Sure.
That boost.
It's like an ego boost of sorts. Yeah.
That's one thing. Being able to, there's one thing that we are wired for, and I believe it comes from God. We are wired to do not harm the person in front of you. Like, do the best that you can to just not harm that person. But in our desire, when our desire gets in the way, it's like, oh, I have to choose between the person and my desire. And since my desire is sometimes pretty strong, like, I just want this. And for some people, it would really be, I want to be seen or perceived in a certain way, that I am okay if I just use people. And it's going to look like, oh, you're so generous and you're so kind. But behind that, what there is really, it's really just a motivation of just loving yourself. Because it's this simple. Love your neighbors as you love yourself. If you do not love yourself, in other words, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. If you get on a plane and they tell you with the mask, when do not try to put the mask on somebody else without putting yours first. Do yours first. Why? Because you need to make that's by doing that, you're gonna guarantee, okay, I'm gonna continue living so that I can help more people.
Sure.
By not doing that, what you're really saying is, I really don't care how many people I can help. I just want to, look like I am helping everybody, and look like a hero.
Sure.
At the core of that, it sounds to me like, you're not really taking care of yourself. How are you really? And the thing is, you may carry that for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
It's not gonna last.
It's not gonna last forever. That, like, I see what you mean in that case. But do you think that everybody who does that is looking at it from that perspective, or like is in that space where internally it's feeding their own ego or their own desire to be seen as generous by other people? The reason I'm asking that is because I guess what also can happen in some places, like I was recently watching this video. There's this channel called Caleb Hammer. I mean, I guess it's not like an apples to apples comparison, but I'm reminded of this person who's on that channel. Basically, he does like financial audits of people, like normal people, right? They apply to go to the show, they come there, and then they sort of like do things for themselves. Or like he looks at their bank records and all that sort of stuff, telling them where they can fix their money problems. Anyway, something about some woman just constantly helping her family, and like Well, yeah, like I said, it's not an apples to apples comparison because she starts leeching out of them. Or well, her family starts leeching stuff from her, I should say. Sorry, a bit of a brain fart there. But yeah, they're like her family is constantly taking from her. As a result of all of that, she gets to a point where she's like, no, I don't want this anymore. A lot of this was caused because of like some manipulation when she was growing up and all of that kind of stuff. So, right, in those cases also, like she is giving to them while not taking care of herself.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's not like for her personal benefit, it's because she's in that situation. So that's why I'm asking, like, I'm sure there's other instances also, right? So I'm curious to know, like, how might that apply from the way things are explained?
Yeah, there are. I would definitely not say everybody that does it that way is because
Sure.
they're looking something for them. No,
Sure.
you do get to a point where you simply do things for people, and you do neglect yourself sometimes. Yeah, you choose to, hey, I have $5 and I'm just gonna give this $5 to this person, and I'm not gonna have $5. I'm like, okay, I have nothing. Like, yeah, there is a level of healthy way to do it. What I'm talking about more is just is that person that that kind of pattern or lifestyle becomes a neglect yourself completely. Don't take care of yourself so you can take care of others. Like you could do that. It's just it won't be sustainable.
Right.
At the end you're gonna burn out.
Yeah. It's like that metaphor, right? Like you to be able to fill someone else's cup of water, you need to have water in your cup, kind of
exactly.
thing. So yeah, no, totally.
You can't give what you don't have. And
right.
I mean the best way to put it is not the best way to put it, but an example that I can think of right now. Somebody who goes to war and is wounded, like immediately, hey, let's take this person, let's help this person. To recover, once you recover, you can go back. Sometimes, yeah, there are people that are just wounded, and really by recovering, just taking care of yourself, you're gonna be able to help more people than just letting yourself like go. I was like, okay, you help 3-4 people, that sounds so nice. So anyways, does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you mean. But to sort of go into that like example of war and like the bad things that are happening in the world, right? Like while I understand like foundationally speaking, a lot of it is motivated by greed, um, by wanting to be in power and all that kind of stuff. Like the different wars happening all over the world, right? How does the Bible explain wars, and how does it explain those situations where, yeah, people are out for it for themselves? Does it go back simply to the Adam and Eve example, or is there more that explains a lot of the stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely encourage you to read just the first 5 chapters of the Bible. It will set up everything, pretty much everything you need to know. Well, not everything you need to know, but the basics, and to help
like
you
the
understand.
Foundation.
Exactly.
Sure.
But there's one thing that happens when the temptation comes, and is we call it Satan, and the serpent says, "The day that you eat from this tree, you will know, you will know." You will be able to differentiate. You will be able to tell between good and bad, and in other words, that you will be like God.
Right.
So that's what the serpent is saying. Hey, he doesn't want you to be like him, and you can be like him. Like you don't need to pay attention to what he's saying. Just make your own decisions, and you're gonna be like God. And what's one thing that God has? If you look at just the first chapters of the Bible, this God, with the word of his mouth, he creates the sun, the moon, the earth, the law of gravity, the mountains. You have to be freaking powerful to do that. You have to be really freaking powerful, man, to do that. So it shows you something. Oh, this God has power. So if the temptation is go and be like God, yeah, you can be like him. Be like God. Be your own God. You don't have to follow him. So the pattern that we're gonna follow is, I want power, my own way. I want power. Like that's what I want. And when you look at society, look at war, for example. It's this idea of like, I just want to show who has more power.
Yeah.
It's a battle for power.
Right.
Some people justify it as, well, it's survival. Really? Okay. How much of that is really you just want to have power? And again, it goes back to the very beginning where the serpent is telling them, just be like, you can be your own God. You can be your own God. You don't need him. Don't pay attention to him. This God who creates the world out of his mouth. And the serpent is telling them, you don't need him. Like there's something that in your mind has to go, hold up. If I am here because he put me here, I very likely need him. So if you're coming now to tell me that I don't need him, I can do life without him. That sounds very interesting. So we walked away from him, and yeah, all this starts happening. And the Bible, there are many different examples of war.
Sure.
In the Bible, and that's one reason why I also love the Bible. It just doesn't hide anything. It doesn't like there's murder, there's greed. There's a lot, like, and it helps you see, like, oh yeah, this is the way humanity. Even if you just want to read it as a historical book of history, it tells you like, oh, look at the way humans have been after Adam and Eve, they have kids because humanity starts like spreading, growing.
Sure.
And they have what's the name? I forget the name in English. Is Cain and Abel, and one kills the other. And it's the first time we see murder.
The one sibling kills the other sibling.
Yeah, one sibling kills the other sibling. Doesn't it look like something that would happen today too? A sibling killing another? Yeah, I've seen that in the news. The question is why?
Right.
Why did the first one kill? Hold up. What, like when you read the story? Well, one person was jealous about the other. Jealousy comes to the scene. You kill people because you feel jealous. Have you heard stories of someone's boyfriend, girlfriend killing somebody else because they felt jealous? And it's like a lot of stuff started making sense. And it's like, oh, I see where this thing comes from. So I don't know if that answered the war question. Now, when Jesus came, he shared. This is one thing that I think everybody should think about Jesus, and is this man can predict his death. He says, I'm gonna die, and in 3 days I'm gonna come back to life. If somebody can do that, you better pay attention to what he said, to the things that he has to say. If he can predict his own death, and several times he did it throughout the Gospels, with Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Yeah, he tells them, "Hey, I'm gonna be killed, but in 3 days, I'll be back." I say, whoa. So if somebody can predict his death, you need to pay attention to what this person says. So one thing that he says, if I'm not wrong, it's Matthew 24. Is he mentions, when the end times comes, like there will be an end to all of this, like this stuff. Like, if this is the best life it's gonna get, I feel like hopeless. If the way life, or like, I'm not saying the whole world is like horrible, like no, but dude, like you can see how much evil there is going on, and like you only have to turn on the news, and there's literally gonna be a section just for the good news of the day, because there are so many bad news that there's just one section. And Jesus tells his followers, when the end comes, you're gonna hear of earthquakes. You're gonna hear. Actually, we had one yesterday.
We had one yesterday. Yeah. At the time of recording, of course. Yeah.
Exactly. Earthquakes, famine, war. Like he listed it all out. And when you look at the world right now, one thing is, this man 2,000 years ago said that these things were gonna happen. 2,000 years later, they're happening. This man said he was gonna die, he was gonna be crucified, and he was gonna resurrect from the death. It happened. Like, you start seeing the pattern. Whatever this man says happens.
Yeah.
You better pay attention to this man. And now when you look at the world today, whatever he said it was gonna happen is happening. It's like, ooh, you earthquakes, tsunamis, like all of that stuff. It's like, man, Oh, that's
right. I see what you're saying. But is it, because I mean, I personally don't think it is, but is it possible to live in a perfect world? Like, is there a perfect world?
A perfect world. I think everybody has a different definition of world. Perfect world. For some
What's
people,
yours?
yeah, for some people it's gonna be like a world with nice economy, a world with one world leader. Like there's a different
Sure.
definition of perfect. But to me, a perfect definition of world would go back to that beginning where God and humans were together in perfect harmony. God or humans are together. There is no murder. There is no killing. There is no evil. There's nothing. After they choose to do whatever the heck they wanted to do, is where everything just fell apart. So is there one? Yeah. And by the way, Jesus said that to his followers that he'll come back. After he died, he ascended into heaven, and he told his followers, "Hey, I'll be with you until the end of the year." The Bible tells a story that there is two angels that they just appear to his 500 followers, and they tell him, "Hey, why do you keep looking on? Like the same way that you see him live, the same way he will come back." And then when you ask, like when you think of it, like, okay, why would you come back? Would you just come back to be like, oh yeah, hey, hi, I'm back. Hey, hi guys. I don't know. So when you read what he has to say, what he would come to do, he will come to judge the living and the dead. Wait, judge? What do you mean? Judge what? Their actions. Oh. So all of this evil that is happening today is not just gonna be like, fine, it's just, yeah, it's fine. Like one day, somebody will have to answer, say, hey, respond for their actions. Just as we do, like we within ourselves, we have this desire that if somebody does something wrong, they have to pay for it.
Yeah. There's always a reaction. Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from? Is it wrong to have that desire? No, there is a desire for justice inside your heart. I wonder if that comes from God, because we are in His image. Yeah, and He says, "I'm gonna come back to judge that because this is wrong. This is wrong. It's wrong to be doing those things. I'll come back and I'll judge that." It's like, ooh, I see His heart for justice. Oh, okay. Humans, we do have laws. We do have justice systems, huh? So, just food for thought.
No, for sure. No, that's an interesting thought. Yeah, because like if you think about it, right? Like I think every religion sort of has its way of explaining a lot of these like problems and things that happen in this world. So it's, I think, while it is a very idealistic image, I don't think we'll ever see a perfect world in our lifetime, and maybe not even in our kids' lifetime, or not even in our grandkids' lifetime. What do you think? Do you think we'll ever get to a point where there is a perfect world?
No.
No.
Not on this earth. I believe in life after death.
Sure. I do too, but yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
So, this is not the best that it gets. We'll go back to the beginning, because when you look at the narrative of the Bible, it looks like God is continually trying to take humans back to the way it was at the beginning.
Sure.
Back to the way it was at the beginning. But humans continue to choose, I want to do it my own way. I want to do it my own way. I want to do it. So at the end, if you have to choose between, like, who's going to win between God and humans? Who has more power? Right. Who's going to say, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's going to happen. So yeah, Jesus said it. It will go back to the way it was. Right. And if he said it, it will happen. So there will be a world where there will be no pain. And the book of Revelation talks about that, which a lot of people are scared. Like, oh, this is a book of like the apocalypse. This is happening. Like, it's one of the most beautiful books in the Bible. One of the most beautiful, because it shows you, hey, this is what's going to happen when all of these things over. Like, it's going to be better. There won't be pain. There won't be tears. There won't be sickness. There won't be any of that stuff. Like, yeah, it will happen. Not in this lifetime. So probably not my kids, not your kids or your grandkids. So, yeah.
The book of Revelation, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I read it like 2 months ago. It's like reading a movie, man. Oh gosh, it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. So I'm curious to know what your perspective on, because you mentioned you are more on the Hinduism side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know what your perspective is on like where humans come from, why is the world the way it is, and where we're going.
I think again, this is just my personal perspective. Some
Mhm.
Hindus might disagree.
Oh, there are different.
No, but in the sense that, okay, this is maybe, I'd like to get your idea on this too. I'm a believer of the fact that our experiences, like whatever we've experienced in life, tends to have a role to play in how we see certain things or a lot of things in life, right? Like, so even our view on religion is going to be different if you ask a person to person. Now, sure, will they be able to give you an answer about what the book says? Sure. Maybe not everybody, but a good few people might be able to give you an answer based on what the book says about a lot of these concepts. So there is that. But I also feel like, so the reason I'm saying this is because I read the Bhagavad Gita a lot later in my life. I read it 3 years back. So the way I saw it, right, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Like there's a lot of different concepts that talk about, you know, bringing yourself closer to God. Whatever you do, like your actions should be in the image of God, and that you're giving back to God, and that is your way towards reaching Him and getting to Him. And it talks about concepts of like rebirth as well, wherein our soul, that sort of, that's the connection that I saw earlier when you were talking about that separation from the body. I guess I would explain it as a soul that leaves the body, and that soul has many different lifetimes. And at the end, or not at the end, but the eventual goal of the soul is to get closer to God. But a lot of that depends on your actions. Like the way I see it, in some sense, is like, say there's a ladder to climb to the top where God is, right? Your actions will dictate where you end up, right? So in this life, say before I was born, I was probably closer to the top than to the bottom, right? But if I do a lot of bad things in this life before I leave, it's very likely that I'm going to climb back down, right? So
it seems like you will never have certainty of where you're going to end up.
You will have certainty of where you end up if you live by the motto of giving back to God and like not living in a materialistic way. Because it also talks a lot about like materialism versus not spiritualism. Spiritualism not the right word, but sort of in an idealistic nature of your actions. Even if you live in this material world, are your materialistic ways of doing things giving back to the higher power, or are they just feeding yourself? Are they just feeding your greed and all of that kind of stuff? So
what are you guys' beliefs on like where you guys come from?
Oh, I'm forgetting now, but
where humanity, where the humanity comes from.
Let's see. Thanks for that. I'm not.
And the reason why I ask is because like this is a question that let's suppose there's only let's suppose we're able to see there's one human on Earth,
right?
One, and this human is like you're gonna have some questions. The questions probably one of the questions that you will have is where did I come from? Like who put me here? Why did you put me here? Where are we going? Am I gonna stay here? Like those are basic questions. Basic questions that I would ask to every religion.
Sure.
So like whatever you believe, like where do you? Because that's just this is not even a religious question. It's just like if you're the only human on Earth, I think you will be asking those questions.
Sure.
I think that's
yeah. I see what you mean. Like from a point of origin, like where we started. I might be wrong about how I explained this from what I remember of reading the book. So if anybody in the comments has a better idea of this, please elaborate. From what I remember, it talks about like all creatures and beings sort of being brought to this earth by God, like animals and humans, right? And we sort of look at it in this perspective, wherein even those animals have a soul in their body, and even humans have a soul in their body. So it is very possible for these souls to travel between these different organisms. So I know it doesn't necessarily explain your question or answer your question of the first human, but the understanding that I can remember from reading the book, and my understanding of the concept in general, is that all organisms were put in this earth by God. Like that ladder that I was talking about, on that ladder, on the lower rungs of the ladder, animals with like lesser sense of conscience are there, whereas beings with more conscious humans are slightly higher up. So depending on your actions, it is very likely that you could be born as a different animal lower on the totem pole. That's sort of like the explanation.
Okay.
And again, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But yeah.
Now, do you fully embrace the belief, or are you more like open? Where do you feel like you are?
So I think personally, while I am a very religious person, and I definitely believe that there is God, because I've had personally, I don't want to get into it live, but we can talk about it later. I've had personal experiences where that's strengthened my belief in the existence of a God, right? Because as a kid, like growing up in a religious family, all you're going to be told is, yeah, pray to God, do this, do that, da 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 da. But you have experiences over time that sort of make you realize, oh, okay, there is a God, and so on and so forth. To each their own, but that's just my lens of life. Sorry, what was your like?
Now, if you fully like embrace,
yeah. So
the
yeah,
view.
I would personally say that there's still a lot for me to learn and understand about certain concepts in Hinduism, and the reason I say that is because the Bhagavad Gita is like, I guess the explanation, to put it in like a very simple way, is that that's like the entry level book to read, right? There's other books and like the Vedas and many other things that explain a lot of the world, that are like more higher level, I guess.
Okay. So it seems to me like, if I can summarize it,
Sure.
is we are put here on earth to do good things,
Right.
and as long as you keep doing good things, you're gonna end up being a type of animal that would be better in status, or
better as in like you will become closer to God. You will be in heaven, if you will, if that's one way of
not as a human, but as an animal.
Not as an animal. Well, I guess not as an animal, but I guess you're looking at the soul as an entity itself.
Oh, okay.
Right? You're looking at the soul that's inside my body as an entity itself.
I'm curious
Sure.
to ask.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay.
So like the soul of a human would enter an animal.
If you do bad.
Oh, if you do bad.
Mm-hmm.
If you do good.
That's a very general explanation, but so basically, like, say, I'll put it this way. Like, I don't know if this is a good way to explain it, but this makes the most sense to me. Prateek is born in this world, right? I'm born in this world. In my existence of, I don't know how many years God is willing to give me, 70 years, 80 years, right? 70% of the time, I do good. 30% of the time, I do bad. Right? That motivates where my soul ends up after my death. Because it's 70-30, I'm probably closer to getting to God. And this is just my opinion. If God believes something else, I don't know. But I mean, that is a joke. But if it's 70-30 on the opposite side, where I've done bad 70% and good 30%, I go down the ladder wherein my soul would be entering an animal's body.
So that's like your punishment.
If you want to see it that way, sure. Because it's like animals have lesser, like we have an understanding, we have a psychology, we have a brain that operates, is able to discern things. Animals don't, right? Like, sure, animals have that, but to their own very foundational level. So like animals are seen as like, and again, I'm not saying that animals are a bad sort of being, because I can see how that can be an image, but there's a lot of animals that we respect and like we revere as God in our religion as well, for how they support the system, if you will, and like how they embody God's image and so on, which is one of the reasons why we don't eat beef and so on. But anyway, so in like the animal world as well, I guess you could say that there are animals that are looked at a higher ranking, for the lack of a better word. Like cows are revered so much. That's why Hindus don't eat cows. I mean, sure, there are some who, but that's their choice. That's not mine to sort of criticize or not. But yeah, so that's sort of how I would explain it on a very foundational level. Is that you do bad, you go down the ladder, your soul enters a body with lesser consciousness. You do good, you go up higher, your soul enters a body that has more consciousness. And then it's like that process of getting to God, your soul traveling to God at the end of it all.
Now, so you get this from the book. What's the name of the book?
Bhagavad Gita.
Who?
So this is written in the image of Krishna, Lord Krishna. That's like the higher God.
Okay.
But then again, I know people have a lot of questions about, oh, but you guys have many different gods and so on. Because we do, if you look at it that way. Sorry, I'm just going to check why my phone's ringing so much. Scam. So we do have many different gods. But how the Bhagavad Gita explains that as well is that these are gods for the material world. In the sense that, right, we believe in the fact that praying to certain gods is for certain benefits. Like we have a god of education, we have a god of money, god of wealth, X, Y, and Z, right? So those are sort of like gods representing material energies on the world. But Krishna is at the height of it all. He's like the superior power. So yeah, so basically, if I had to put it in a very simple manner, all roads lead to Krishna.
Okay.
Where you end up on that road.
When you say all roads,
like depending on your actions, right? Like depending on what you do in this lifetime, decides where you end up on that ladder that you're climbing to get to Krishna.
How is, and this is curiosity.
Sure. I appreciate you asking.
Because here's the thing that I have noticed too, and from my understanding of the Bible, it seems in the Bible, God is defining what is good and what is evil. Because if humans do that, well, for me, it's good to steal some money and not tell anybody.
Yeah.
That's good. If it seems like the God of the Bible is saying, I am not going to let you define what's good or evil. Because if you do that, you're very selfish and you're going to define what's good according to whatever you think is good. No, I'm going to define it. So and then comes the law. I'm not if you're familiar with the 10 Commandments. And then he gives them the law. And hey, this is what's wrong, this is what's right. And interesting, there are 10. The first 5 are connected to God and humans. Don't have any other gods. Don't use the name of God in vain. And the other 5 commandments are related to humans and other humans. So hey, don't kill, don't murder, don't do any of those things. So it's like, oh, so God is defining what is good and what's wrong. Okay, so in that
there are
the perspective of Christianity. So I'm curious to know from the perspective of Hinduism how you're saying the goal really is to do good things. So how is defined? How is good and bad defined?
So there's many different things that are explained as good actions and bad actions in the Bhagavad Gita. Like, for example, this is a very simple example, but so when you prepare your food, right? Food is a gift of God. The first thing you should do, foundationally speaking, is offer that food to God before you consume it yourself. Like that lack of offering to God can be seen as but is looked at as a bad action. Killing animals is bad. Murder, bad. So there are those frameworks as well that sort of talks about, okay, committing certain actions, bad, doing certain things, good. And this is where like I sort of not battle with the religion, but battle with my understanding of where we are. And this is not me saying that one religion is better than the other or anything like that, but it's just the way we live life on this world as humans at the end of the day, which I'm curious to sort of get into on another perspective as well. But we talk about not killing animals in books in Hinduism, but there are Hindus who eat animals. I'm a Hindu who eats animals, right? So that definitely adds to committing bad actions in my log of good and bad, right?
So they're going down, kind of.
Right. Again, like I said, it's a 70-30, like the example earlier. But that's just one sort of example, right? So, and for a lot of different reasons, like I battled with this and I was like, okay, I do want to get to a point in my life where I can work myself to a point where I don't have to rely on eating meat anymore. So like I feel like it's also, I'm probably sort of losing the plot of your question in some sense, but basically, I think what is also said is that understanding what your wrongs are and taking that path back to make sure that you're doing the right things will always be better. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, even if you take religion out of it, right?
Yeah.
You'd always appreciate a robber who then stops robbing and becomes a good man after it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a simple example that you could sort of superimpose is a strong word, but sort of look at it that way as well to make it easy to explain things. So yeah, so in that case, like if there is a book that gives me -1 for all the bad I do and +1 for all the good I do, me probably eating animals gives me -1s in a lot of ways. But me, I don't know, giving offerings to God and giving thanks to God and so on and so forth, or helping other people in need, so on and so forth, that probably marks a +1 and on the other side. So, and there are beliefs that go so far as saying that even your thoughts get judged. Like if you have bad thoughts, that can add to your -1. If you have good thoughts, that can add to your +1. So if I'm being brutally honest, I think there's a lot of it that I am still trying to understand from a perspective of the world we live in today and the world explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Because I think, because there's a lot of people that say, oh, your thoughts are not you.
Who are they then?
Yeah, sure. I battle with that question too. I battle with that question too, because I'm like, if your thoughts are not you, okay, like.
I think, well, I want to let you finish, but there's a story in the Bible that
sure. Yeah. So I kind of battle with that also because I wonder, sure, okay, maybe by that what people might mean is that my thoughts are not completely what I believe in, but they are thoughts that cross my mind. Because like the way I sort of rationalize it is also like I might have certain thoughts, but then they don't align with my values. Those are just like irrational thoughts that come and go. Whereas I think the deeper meaning of understanding that is understanding where those irrational thoughts are coming from. And more likely than not, they stem from something inside, is my general outlook on it. But yeah, that's why like I battle with that idea of like your thoughts, not all your thoughts are yours and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, I don't know if I fully agree with when people say that, like, because I mean, there's a lot of people that say that, and I'm not trying to say that they're bad people for saying that or anything, but it's an opinion that's out there, and I'm not quite sure if I fully agree. And
does the book provides any answer?
From what, yeah. So I read it a few years back, and this is something that maybe I should do more often, is go back and read it more often. But from what I remember, thoughts do have, like, you know, somewhere they come from you, and come from your being. So yeah, somewhere deep down inside it is you.
Have you ever had like thoughts of like really bad thoughts? You're like, why did I just think about this?
Yeah. Oh yeah, many times. Times. I've had thoughts. I'm like, why am I thinking this? Like, what is?
Okay.
Yeah, where is this coming from? And
that sounds very. I have. Well, again, I by no means try to compare.
No, not at all.
This is just a way. I really found the answer in the Bible. There's this very interesting story where one of the disciples of Jesus, Jesus is telling them again, "Hey, I'm gonna die.
Right.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna be crucified. Like the religious leaders are gonna take me and they're gonna crucify me. All of that." And then Peter is one of his disciples. He takes him aside and he says, I don't remember the exact words, but he pretty much tells him that's not going to happen. Like even the Bible says he rebuked him, and rebuke is a form of saying you're wrong. That's not happening to you. And the way Jesus answers to him is very interesting, because Jesus says, "Get out of here, Satan." He did not say, "Peter, what's wrong with you?" No, I'm telling you, this is going to happen. And it happened. And I think you may be familiar with the story of Peter denying Jesus 3 times. Jesus told Peter, "You're going to deny me 3 times." And then Peter was like, no, it's not going to happen. And it happened. So everything that this man is saying that is going to happen happens. You better pay attention to what he has to say.
Sure.
But it's so interesting that Jesus seems to overlook Peter, and he's like, hold up, this is not Peter who's saying this. This is Satan. And when you look at that, I mean, it was just a thought. Like, it's just Peter coming to Jesus and saying, hey, no, that's not going to happen to you.
Right.
There's no way. It's an idea, and he's just voicing it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is able to tell where that idea is coming from.
Yeah.
It's coming from Satan. So it gave me understanding on some of our thoughts. Yeah, they don't come from us.
Yeah.
They come from evil forces.
Yeah.
We believe there are forces of evil in the world that we can't see. Just as there is a physical world that we can touch, there is like a spiritual world we can't touch. We can't get there. And yeah, you can see that, like, oh, this is a disciple, man. He's so close to Jesus. He's so close to God. We consider Jesus God. And Jesus is able to say, he didn't say, Peter, you're wrong, like rebuke Peter. No, he's like, Satan, get out of here. He said, oh, so what Jesus pretty much is implying is this thought was influenced by Satan, by an external force that Peter is not even aware of.
Sure.
By an external force, when Jesus was able to say, oh, that's what it is. And what Jesus ended up saying is, hey, get out of here, Satan. You do not see the things the way God sees them. You do not see things the way God sees them. Which takes us to why does Jesus have to die on a cross? That's I mean, it's a very cool question, interesting. But yeah, when you brought up the evil thoughts, and this, I would say this to anybody: if you're having thoughts that are not yours, I am just cooking, and I just thought of like stabbing somebody with a knife. Like, oh, hold up, I'm just making my chicken. Why would I think about that? Yeah, that's. Yeah, did you choose to think about that? No, if that's the case. So my question would be, where do you think it comes from? Yeah, there are evil forces, and
right.
And the question is, how do you think they manifest? How do you think those evil forces in the world manifest? I mean, they have a desire. The desire is, let's say desire is killing somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If I can control your mind, I can control your behavior.
Okay.
So, and the Bible, when you read the New Testament, it constantly talks about renew your mind, transform your mind, because there's a lot of place that what we call the enemy uses in our minds to influence people. And if somebody comes and tells me, no, there are no evil forces in the world, I would say, like, how can you explain a man who killed his daughters, 4 or 5 of them? Are you just telling me that this man was angry and he just went for it? Really? How could you explain somebody who kills his dad? Mm-hmm. He didn't go to school to learn how to do that.
Right.
Like, he didn't learn that in school. Like, where did he learn that? Where did he learn that he could do that? And where did he find the courage to do that? I wonder if there is something more. I wonder if there is something influencing this person to go and do that. So, just food for thought, man.
No, absolutely, dude. No, like, completely. Like, I think there is a lot of, and this is my outlook on life in general, is you're not going to have all the, at least, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not going to have all the answers at 25 or 26, right? Like, a lot of life is figuring things out and, like, going through that soul searching, giving yourself that food for thought and, like, thinking of things, right? Because when you were talking about the examples of, like, fathers killing their kids or kids killing their fathers and so on, I'm reminded of the story of a wrestler. Do you watch WWE?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. John Cena, Undertaker.
Yeah. So there used to be this wrestler back in 2005, 6. His name was Chris Benoit. I don't know if you've heard of his name. He used to wrestle a lot with, like, Eddie Guerrero and, like...
Eddie Guerrero, I remember Eddie Guerrero.
So he used to... Yeah, so he used to wrestle a lot with Eddie Guerrero and like Rey Mysterio and all those people.
Rey Mysterio.
Yeah,
Whoa, that's
yeah.
cool.
So he's from that era, like when Kurt Angle and all those people were there. Anyway, he ended up like killing his wife, killing his son, and then killing himself. And like he's basically been like erased from the history, sort of. Like whenever anything about him comes up, people try not to talk about it. But yeah, like some of it that they connected to, like there is a interesting documentary about like wrestling called this is weird that I'm making this connection, but there's this thing called Dark Side of the Ring. I think that's the name of the show, where they sort of look at issues caused by injuries to the head, right? Like concussions and like CTE, and how that affects the brain and like your ability to make decisions and so on and so forth from a perspective of science. And I'm forgetting the specifics of what that episode talks about because it was so like it's been a while since I've watched it. But from what I can remember, they suggest that a lot of the head trauma that he took doing like performing as a wrestler affected his psychology so much to where it could have possibly influenced him choosing to kill his wife and his son when he was when he was not in the best space of mind.
Yeah.
So I guess this is another interesting topic I'd like to explore with you, like the connection of science with God and religion. Like, what are your thoughts on that connection? Or is there a connection? How do you see it?
If science is connected to religion?
In some sense, yes.
Hold up, I don't feel like I'm fully like grabbing your question.
The reason why I'm asking that is because like
some people believe in science and they completely dismiss religion. Is that what you're?
There is one. There is that. Yes, okay. There is that. There's also other schools of thought, like in ancient Hindu history. There's like a lot of books that talk about like certain aspects of science, like the galaxies, the Milky Way, and so on. And there's videos out there if people are interested to like look them up. I think Beer Biceps is the name of the YouTuber. He like spoke to like a Swami who was like I guess like you could call him a monk, in like an English sense. And he sort of talks about how there's like ancient human history that talks a lot about science that's kind of connected to religion in some sense. And like a lot of modern science is discovering that right now. So that's my other foundation for asking that question. Like, firstly, yes, the whole thing of, oh, I don't believe in science, I completely believe in what God says, or, oh, no, I don't believe in religion, I completely believe in science. That is one interesting, I guess, conversation to navigate. The other interesting conversation to navigate, I think, is also what have people in the past and like gods in their world, if you will, learned about the world that we are still learning, if that makes sense.
What has people in the past learned about God that we are still learning?
No, what has the ancient civilization, what has ancient civilization learned about the world? May not God specifically, but what has ancient civilization learned about the world that we haven't learned yet? Wow. You can, whichever one you want to explore, we'll go for.
I think that for the science question, I have plenty of time. I really love this. It's kind of fun. There is. When you say religion, I don't feel that I fully understand. Sorry, science. I don't feel that I fully understand what it all entails. But
That's okay.
So all that I have is science believe the world was created through the Big Bang. That's pretty much all I know.
Right.
So I could be wrong. Yeah, religions has a different worldview.
Sure.
So as far as that, if I have to like, do I believe in science? When it comes to like, do I believe the world was created that way? Absolutely not. And the reason is because Big Bang is, based on my understanding, is this idea that there was just an explosion and poof, beautiful mountains and the sun and the earth was exactly what it needed to be. It didn't go a centimeter more or less. It was right there, and then we have rivers and animals and like galaxies, and it all happened because there was an explosion. It's like, ah, okay, let's try to prove it. Like, what if we have an explosion right now? Like, out of that explosion, are we gonna really get beautiful mountains here in Edmond? Like, I think everybody would be exploding everything. If that's the case, because my question, if it happened then, why can it not happen now? Like, what happened? So when it comes to science and that point of that perspective, it's like, okay, and the perspective of um, how the world is created, I don't believe in the way their worldview, and also the worldview of how humans evolved.
Sure.
If I'm not wrong, there is the idea that we come from monkeys, from chimps. Which, yeah, makes sense. There's like a couple of genes that we share with them. It's like, yeah, that's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where we come from. But one thing that I actually was reading about this or listening about, watching a video about that yesterday, which is where do languages come from? Like, and this man was saying like science is still having a problem and having to explain like how is it that we're all humans? Yeah, we all have arms, legs, like head, but we speak different languages. If we all come from the same species, we all should be speaking the same language. How is it that we speak a different language? Like at what point did it all get mixed? And there's a story in the Bible that explains that question in case anybody wants to know, like where do languages come from? In the Bible, it actually was a judgment from God because humans were creating this city, and the city was a rebel to rebel against God, and they were all working together in this city, and they said in their hearts, we're gonna build this so high that it's gonna get to heaven. And in ancient times, the way they would see heaven is like the place where God is.
Right.
Heaven is the place where God is, the place where He dwells, His throne. So we're gonna build this city. It's gonna be so high that it's gonna reach heaven. In other words, we're gonna reach the status of God. Going back to the beginning, why the serpent says you can be God. It's like, oh, now you can see it played out here. And God, as a judgment, He divides their language. And like, I'm gonna have them speak different languages. And after that, they were not able to build the city, obviously, because they're speaking different languages. I don't understand what they say. Like, it's like, oh, it makes sense where languages come from. So as far as science in that area, that's right. I have a problem with that. What about you? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. Like in the sense of, I was just curious to know how you thought about it. Because yeah, like my personal outlook is that science does explain a lot of things in like the world that we live in. Maybe not so much about our origin and so on. Like I haven't dug up much of that side, like the physics side of like our creation and so on, to know like the details of like gray matter and whatever other matter there is out of there, or Big Bang and all that. I haven't like dug up enough to know details about it. But if we are to speak about the current context, I do think that in the ancient world, they had a lot of things that were like solutions to problems that we're facing right now, that modern science is still finding a way to get there.
Yeah.
Like there was an example that came to my mind. I have very random connections for things, but there's this one journalist from Britain called Graham Hancock. He's been on the Joe Rogan Experience talking about like, and I can remember something that he said. Like, how can we explain how the pyramids of Giza were built? Like, think about it. Back in the day, like, we think that we're living in modern science today with like the best technology in the world and all of that kind of stuff. But how did they build those pyramids that are still standing the test of time when they didn't have all of that technology, right? Like, something has to explain that. So like that just made me think about like food for thought, right? I don't have the answer, but I'm intrigued by the question to want to know what the answer might be. So I'm just curious of what people think about that kind of stuff. Because it's interesting to explore. I mean, for me at least, it's interesting to sort of explore how we think about these things. Because at the end of the day, fundamentally, that's the way we see things and the way we approach things is what makes us the people we are, right? Like a lot of our life experiences sort of get us to do these things or explain certain things a certain way or see things a certain way. So yeah, that was my main reason for asking you.
That makes sense.
But yeah, like just sort of winding down towards the close of the conversation. Yeah, let me ask you this. So I have this personal goal of wanting to read like some religious books that are not mine, like not Hinduism books, like Bible or Quran and so on. Are there versions of so, and this is for people who are also interested, maybe like me, who are interested to read. Is there a certain version of the Bible that you would suggest? Like someone who's just reading for knowledge, not reading specifically to, I guess, for religious purposes, but just reading for knowledge.
Yeah.
Is there a version of it that you'd suggest one reads?
Well, I mean, the Bible is a group of books.
Sure.
So there are books.
Sure.
If you, I mean, if you just want to get an idea of the world and like where we come from,
right?
Like just the first 3 chapters of Genesis, first 3 or 4, it's gonna give you an idea. Like, oh, this is interesting. Explains the rivers and explains a lot. Then what happens to humans? Like, how did we get to this point? Like, how did we? Yeah, the first 3 chapters is gonna take, I don't know, it's gonna take you less than 20 minutes to read it. And just really look at the details. Like, look at the details. It's gonna give you. It's gonna help. It's gonna make you have questions. Right. Questions like, okay, what happens? Like, these people disobey God. What happened? Like, what's next? And then you start seeing how the story plays out. That God expels them from the garden. It's like, so is God? Then it should make you ask the question: wait, what God created was not humans outside of the garden. He created them to be with Him, but because of their disobedience, now He has to expel them. Is He gonna give up there? Is He gonna try to continue to like, hey, I want you guys back here? Like, what is He gonna do? And then when you start reading the story of even just the book of Genesis, you start seeing how God. Then comes the Noah, and that humanity has grown so much, and it's so wicked and so evil that God chooses to destroy them and sends the flood. I don't know if you're familiar with the flood, and then chooses. But out of that, He saved one man. He says Noah, and He saves Noah and the animals and all that. And then but something happens with this man. This man chooses to rebel against God again. He chooses to go the exact same thing that Adam and Eve did. So it's like, oh my gosh, what is God gonna do now? Like, it seems like this man was gonna be the solution now because there are no more humans. This is the only one. It looks like he's gonna be the solution. He chooses the same thing, right? To rebel. And then you keep looking at the story, and then God, then comes the city. Then they grow from this man on. They grow so much, and they want to be God. And then that's when God divides the languages. And then from that, God chooses one man. His name is Abraham. And He tells Abraham, I will bless the nations of the whole world through your descendants. And I was like, hold up. Is God saying that He's going to do something through this God to take us back to where it was at the beginning? Which, again, the beginning is just that perfect relationship that we have. It's just our harmony with God. Right. It was broken, and consequences happened. So He chooses this man, Abraham, and then through that, like, oh, this is gonna be the man. Then through these men, everything, because Adam and Eve, they messed up. It's not. They didn't obey God, and no, I didn't obey God. Oh, then Abraham is gonna be the one then. And Abraham, guess what happened with Abraham? The same. He deceived. He lies. And it's like, it gets you to a point where when you look at just the story, it should make you say or question or wonder, hey, this just keeps happening and happening and happening. Is this ever going to stop? Is there ever going to be one person that will be able to stop this, to fully obey God 100%? Then Abraham, and then we jump all the way to King David. And in the history of Israel, they recognized King David as somebody who existed. He was a king, and it looks like, oh yes, this is the king. Now the people of Israel, they know there is a God. This is where we come from. There is a God that is going to bless the world through our nation. Oh, it's going to be through this king. Oh, this is the king that is finally going to be God. And through him, everything's going to go back to the way it was at the beginning, perfect relationship with God. But David does the complete opposite. He literally kills somebody just to have to get somebody's wife. And it's like, okay, you see it again. When you get to a point where you feel like hopeless, because it's like, who is gonna reverse this? Who is gonna be able to fully stop the way the curse of humanity has been going? And it's when we get to Jesus, and when we get to Jesus, the Bible says, if I'm not wrong, is Hebrews 4:16 says that. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting it right now, but it says, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who was tempted in every way, just as Adam and Eve were tempted. He was also tempted, but he did not sin. So it's like, hold up, this story that started at the beginning, they messed up. These other messed up. They all messed up, and we get to this man. Oh, he didn't do it. Wait, hold up. It's through this man that everything's gonna be restored to the way it was at the beginning. And if you wanna put Christianity in just a few sentences, is God made it, humans mess it up, God restored it through Jesus. Now the world is not the way it is, and that's why Jesus says, I will come back, and this world is gonna be the way it was at the very beginning, in a perfect relationship with God. So it's, if you just wanna read something just to have like some idea, I would just definitely encourage you to read just the first 3 chapters of Genesis, and you will see it's just such a cool story. And it's not just a story; it's a history book. It's the story of humanity. Right. That's the way you choose to see the world. And there's a book in the New Testament that is going to help you explain a lot of the greed and all of the evil that is happening in the world. It's actually, I was reading it this morning. It's Romans 1, where it tells you, okay, why is so much like evil happening? Why is this? And the book of Romans says that God chose to simply like take his hands off and let them choose whatever they wanted. Because from the beginning, we didn't choose him. We chose what we thought was better. Yeah. And God just said, yeah, okay, go for it. And because of that, all the stuff that have happened, you just have to read the first chapter. And it's gonna like, at least it's gonna make you like wonder, hold up. If this is truth, the problem really of humanity is not going to be solved by any politician. It's going to be solved through God. Like, he knows the answer. Right. And the Bible says there's only one. Then the question is, how do I get back to have a relationship with God again? Because that's the way it was at the beginning. We broke it. Like, okay, so how do we get back to do that? And the Bible says that there's one mediator between God and humans, and that's Jesus. So it's through him. It's through believing in him, what he did. So that's, and if explaining the reason why he had to die, it may take long, but it's in a very simple way. God literally gave us. I mean, if I can I'll put it this way. Let's say I give you a Lamborghini, nice car, very expensive. Yeah. And I tell you, don't drive that road. Because if you drive that road, you're freaking gonna destroy my car. So please don't do that. And then I give you the keys, and what you choose to do is go that way. Does it sound familiar? Like the beginning, the story of the beginning? Don't eat from that tree. You're gonna eat from it. So you destroy the car, and do you think? I wonder if you're gonna accept it. But let's say I come back with your car. Well, it's destroyed. And I was like, hey, I only have the keys. Like, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? There is something in you as a human that tells you, hey, no, it was very expensive. You chose to do what I told you not to do. Somebody has to pay for this. Somebody has to pay for the car. So when we look at Jesus, the way he dies is God doing that to him, choosing he's going to pay for all that you guys did so that you all don't have to pay. And that just blows my head away, man. How is it that Jesus would choose to do that when he didn't have to? The Bible clearly says he was innocent. Right. He didn't sin. He didn't do it. Like, we deserve to die, and God chose to not do it because He was gonna punish His Son, Jesus, to die on a cross. Such horrible death. So that now through Him we can go back and have a relationship with God. Doesn't mean, oh, we're going back to the way it was at the beginning. There's still problems. There's still, but our relationship with God can be restored, and it can only be through those who receive Jesus in their heart. Those who say, yes, I believe in this man. I believe in the life that he has. And the question that I like asking people, like, if you read the story of Jesus, this man was either the biggest liar that has ever existed, the biggest one. Like, there has no one who has ever lied as much as that man. But if he wasn't the biggest liar that has ever existed, and he's telling the truth, then you probably have a problem. The problem is you're gonna have to choose between Jesus or the fruit, which is, in other words, whatever you want. And that's a very long answer to your question.
That's okay. That's okay. I like the long answers because usually it gives me space to ask more questions. So it's all good.
If you have, I have more. If you have more questions,
oh no, I think the battery's starting to run a little low.
Okay.
But I do kind of have one last question. Well, if there's it's not really like a question, but it's more like a parting thought since we're coming to the end of the podcast. If there's anything you'd like to share to the people listening or watching, anything other than what you've talked about, feel free to share.
Man, I think we talked about a lot. We talked about thoughts coming through your head that you don't know where they are from. We talk about the Bible. We talk about Jesus. We talk about science, and if there's one thing that I would say, and I would encourage people, is just open the Bible and just read it as a book of history if you want to. I don't read it necessarily that way. To me, it's the Word of God. But just open it and read it as a book of history. And just leave it there. And for some people too, is some people are like, there are so many religions. Which one is the right one? I think God is okay with you asking, hey, would you show me what's the right religion? Like, what is there? Where is the truth, really? He'll show you. So that's what I would say. Just open it, read the life of Jesus. Even if you just want to read it as a book of history, such an amazing example to follow. I think everybody would love to follow his example, and that's what I try to do. And so that's. I think it's like all over.
That's okay.
My answer is like all over the place.
That's okay.
Just do that. And and specifically, this meant, hey, if there are like thoughts that you feel like you're like struggling with, and like, hey, this thought doesn't come from me. I don't know where this thought come from. I really want to know, like, hey, I would love to help. I think that I can. We may have to do another episode on spiritual stuff. That's very exciting.
Sure.
But
I'd be down. Yeah.
Oh man. Whew. But yeah, hey, if you're somebody who's like, hey, I'm having these thoughts that they don't come. I don't think they come from me. This is not from me. Like, where do you think it's come from? Man, I would love to talk to. I'd love to talk to you and just maybe help. So.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link your Instagram in the bio and the show notes if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'll do that. For anybody who's curious, follow him, reach out. But yeah, thank you so much, Anthony, for taking the time to do this, man. I'm glad we were able to have this conversation because, if anything, I'd like to be able to have my views challenged a little because that gives me the opportunity to go and learn more.
Yeah.
And I mean, what is life if you're not learning about things throughout your phase of living, right? So thank you so much for sitting down with me and having this chat.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. And for those of you watching, thank you so much, or listening for that matter. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome.
Awesome, man.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Oh, you're welcome.